But Nile, of course, it's not the only international story we're watching today. I want to show a live picture right now as UK lawmakers are currently debating a bill to avert a no-deal Brexit and are slated to vote later today on holding a snap general election. It comes after Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit plans lost a crucial vote in Parliament yesterday. Johnson previously insisted he would take Britain out of the EU by October 31st, with or without a deal in place. Nile, it was a big hit for Boris Johnson there yesterday as we saw this all play out. What do you make of the way that he's been able to handle this? Of course, when he first came into office, you were saying that he would be a breath of fresh air, but it looks as if it's the same problem, same result as he tried to get done what Theresa May was not able to get done.
Well, it's certainly been a very tough couple of days for Boris Johnson and for the British government. And I think that it's important to recognize here that Boris Johnson is doing everything he possibly can to deliver Brexit on October 31st and to deliver the will of the British people. There are those in Parliament who are trying to derail Brexit, to undermine the whole Brexit process, to undermine the negotiating position of the Prime Minister. I think this latest vote today is a very unfortunate move by Parliament, basically completely, I think, undermining the British government. And I think it's imperative now that Britain has a general election to decide the outcome on Brexit. And the latest polls indicate the Conservatives actually would win a majority in such a general election. It's important the British people, I think, have their say here over the way to move forward. And Parliament's decision here to really take away authority from the elected government, I think this is a very, very bad move here. And Parliament clearly is unwilling to implement what the British people voted for in 2016. 17.4 million Britons voted for Brexit. Parliament's job is to implement Brexit. They're simply not doing that right now. And therefore, I think we need a general election in October to ensure the government has the majority in place to enable it to actually implement Brexit on October 31st.
Yeah.
So, as Zach mentioned, you see Boris Johnson as a breath of fresh air, but obviously he's struggling when it comes to coming out with Brexit in a way that doesn't hurt the U.S. economy. So what do you think of his negotiating strategy? Is he trying to use it as leverage, doing this no-deal Brexit, trying to make the case to the EU that if Britain is removed from the EU without a deal, then it would hurt their economy as much as it's hurting the British economy?
Well, clearly, I think that Boris Johnson and the British government want to have a deal negotiated with the European Union. The EU has made unreasonable demands which are unacceptable to the British government, especially the Northern Ireland backstop, which basically ties Britain indefinitely to the EU customs union. And therefore, Boris Johnson has looked for a brand new deal with the European Union. The EU has been very slow in terms of its willingness to negotiate a new agreement. And therefore, Johnson has said that Britain's prepared to leave the EU without a deal on October the 31st. I believe that if Britain does leave without a deal, Britain will do just fine as the world's fifth largest economy. Britain will simply trade with the rest of the world under World Trade Organization terms. And there's a great deal at stake, I think, for the European Union in terms of ensuring that trade continues to flow between Great Britain and the European Union. And so I do believe that on both sides, they will work together to ensure that a no deal is ultimately a success. So I don't think we should be concerned about the economic impact upon Britain or Europe or upon the United States. I think that everyone will be just fine here.
So really, there should be no concern about a no-deal Brexit. And if there's a general election going into October, and Boris Johnson at this point doesn't look very politically potent, under WTO rules, that you would still need to negotiate other trade treaties. In the meantime, what kind of power does he have to make those negotiations with Asia or other partners outside of Europe?
Well, so this is exactly the point of having a general election here. Certainly the aim of the Conservative government would be to be returned with a sizable majority, and therefore the British government could pass legislation effectively. At the moment, is not in that position. And the opinion polls show that the Conservative Party has at least a 10-point lead over the Labour Party. If you combine the Conservative vote with support for the Brexit Party led by Nigel Farage, that combined pro-Brexit vote could be as high as 50%. And I think you'd have a very sizable pro-Brexit majority in Parliament if a general election were to be held. And this is why, of course, a large number of Labour MPs are opposing a general election, because they are afraid of the outcome of a general election result, which would probably give the Conservatives a commanding lead and the ability, I think, to implement successfully whatever legislation it wants to pass. Also, I think a Conservative majority would ensure that Britain definitely leaves the EU on October 31st, with or without a deal with the European Union.
Yeah, right now they're looking a little bit more up in the air. Of course, Boris Johnson taking a bit more of a confrontational approach to get things done than his predecessor did. But Nile Gardiner, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, sir.